Yeah, it's a pretty basic question. Okay. Well, I just thought I'd ask the basic question. Miss Olson, how about you?
Yes, but
Yes, but?
I think we need to rethink some of it. 50,000 children don't go to their assigned school. I don't know what proportion of them we transport.
Okay.
But I think we ought to think about it.
All right. Good deal.
If we're going to have everything on the table, that's one of the things I want to take.
Okay, good. I asked a basic question, which I think we need to answer up front, or we can all go home after this. If the answer is different, is do we want to continue to do transportation?
I think it's part of our obligation, because otherwise students would have transportation to and from school. So I think it's part of what we're responsible for.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Great, great. Well, thank you for working with me, board members, this morning. It's a little unusual for us, but it's set up, but we're going to go with it. And I thank staff for all the information they've sent forward. Like I said, Dr. White is not able to attend today's workshop, nor is he calling in. So we're going to, since the answer is yes, Mr. Black.
I was hoping to catch that earlier.
Well, I'm lucky. We're going to go forward with the meeting today, and I'm excited about that. I was excited about your report. I'm a great believer when we have transitions that we take a look at the whole thing. And we are looking at one specific area today. We're looking at the buses for transportation. So let's try to focus on that, and we'll go on after that. So, Mr. Farkas, welcome, sir. Well, Mr. Farkas is now our Chief Facilities Officer, as we all know. He replaced Kathy Valdez, who moved up to the Deputy Superintendent slot. So we just decided to put Mr. Farkas in the hot seat right off the bat, but he has lots of support from all of us. So we're excited about that. So I'll let you do the intro.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
From there.
And that kind introduction. Trial by fire.
Trial by fire.
Yes. Board members, in July and August, 2 items were brought to the board recommending a bus purchase. The board has some issues with both the recommendations and the procurement process, and therefore determined a consultant should be hired. The consultant was hired with 2 main prongs: decision support for bus purchase and a plan for development of our fleet replacement. And the second prong being overall transportation program review and the progress of the transportation improvement plan since 2006. So that's going to be the focus of what we're. Tom Platt from School Bus Consultants is here, and he's going to present his findings.
Mr. Farkas, go back.
Yes.
Get up pretty fast. I know you're trying to get the spotlight off of yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
I got the first 2, so we're capturing them today, trying to look at 3 main focuses. Would you repeat those 3 so I can make sure that I've got them correct? So I can stay targeted.
Yes, ma'am. And it's also on the first page of the PowerPoint that you're going to get, too. So
Okay.
you don't have to write it down.
Okay.
You
All
just
right.
under-
Thank you. All right.
Ms. Black?
Thank you. Thank you. That's pretty
For being
good.
here.
It is my intent to have a conversation today. I asked actually that I be allowed to sit at the table with you as opposed to putting the thing would be a lot more productive. As we go through this, if we stop, interrupt, talk, ask, discuss, rather than be in the form of just a straight up presentation. So I will invite your interruptions and your questions as we go on. I will address everything. Okay? I believe you are all in receipt of the 2 main reports that were delivered. What we're going to go through is nothing more than a summation of 5 points from each of those reports. So we can stray back and forth from the detail in the reports to the presentation or whatever it is we want here. So, did go through it quickly, but that's because on the first page, he's got a lot to do.
Yes, he did.
I wanted to emphasize what our scope search is actually about. I think it's really important to understand what this project was about and even more importantly, what it was not about. We had 3 main elements to our scope report. The first was an overall assessment of the program as it stands today. It was done within a very specific context. It was done within the context of the original transportation improvement plan from 2006-2007 that the predecessor firm was involved with it at the time. So really what we're doing is assessing progress relative to that plan. But before we could assess progress relative to the specific recommendations, we had to, or we suggested to you that we do sort of an overall assessment on a quantitative basis using just the numbers. Because it puts us in a unique position of being able to compare directly from 2006 to today, following the same methodologies that we did. So for an analyst like me, that's really exciting. There was a particular emphasis that was requested to be placed on the management and budgets part of the plan, because that was identified as a particular problem. Second main element of the scope was the development of a long-term fleet replacement and renewal plan. And the third element was much more tactical, and that was to provide some decision support facilitation services in regards to what kinds of buses are to be offered. So I'm going to take it right through in that way, starting with the assessment of progress relative to the transportation improvement plan itself. And the first subpart of that was the quantitative analysis of system performance. So a couple of preparatory remarks on that front. What this does is to assess the efficiency and effectiveness of the transportation network as it is designed. And that was italicized purposefully because the way the system is designed and the way the system is executed on a day-to-day basis may be somewhat different. That's better. So it does not speak to kind of the day-to-day operational modifications that are and have to occur for some other issues that we will be talking about. It is based solely on data that's extracted from the information systems. But it does provide a direct side-by-side comparison to what we did in 2006. So we can see progress on a numbers basis in terms of how we have been doing. We are looking at district performance against itself 8 years ago. Okay, we are not speaking to regional or national norm. We're just taking a look at what the district has done and how it has changed over the years. And it provides indicators of performance. Again, indicators in italics, because we never look at the numbers as measures of performance, like good, bad, or indifferent, but rather as indicators of what's going on. It helps us understand the root causes for what you are getting, for the outcomes that you are getting.
Can I add something there, because I do have a question related to that. I'm glad you, because one of the questions I look at, we often talk about industry standards. And when you talk about that, this is what the question I want to ask. Are you talking about specifically industry standards as related to school transportation or transportation Heartline, which was counted? Do you look at it in terms of private bus transportation, or do you look at it in the context of strictly talking about transportation design for school districts? So would you kind of talk a little bit about that, because you talked about in terms of maintenance and other kinds of ways about buses and the time. So would you define when you talk about industry?
Everything that we talk about today will be focused on standards as they exist for the student transportation industry. Okay. And there's crossover, right? Maintenance of the vehicles, whether they're school buses or other kinds of vehicles, there's a lot of crossover. But everything we will talk about is specific to school transportation. Okay, so with that as background, let me just throw up some numbers for you, so hopefully you can read those. The first thing to note is the first line on that table says total adjusted cost of transportation. We talked about common methodologies. What we did this time around is the same methodology that we followed back in 2006. We take the raw expenditures as reported to us, and we make certain adjustments to, in our view, be more reflective of actual costs incurred. Okay? The key adjustment there are the capital cost of buses themselves. Any bus purchases made in the year that's being reported, we take that value out of the equation and we add back a calculated straight line depreciation number. Okay? The reason we do that is we know that the number of buses purchased in any one year can vary considerably. So it completely skews your view of how much is actually costing you transportation as opposed to how much you're actually spending. Those are two different numbers. Okay? There are some other minor adjustments we made. We try to adjust out for field trips so we can focus on the core home to school service and some other things that are not directly attributable to the transportation service.
Will we have access to that raw data?
Certainly, it's your data.
All right.
It is as provided to us. So what we're seeing in terms of total trends between the 2006 analysis and the 2013 analysis, and this is FY 06 and FY 13 numbers that we're doing, is you've definitely seen the cost for transportation increase. The increase has been somewhat disproportionate with the district as a whole, which is the numbers you see on the bottom line of this table, which at first glance, when you look at some of the intervening numbers, makes you wonder why that is, and it's not directly apparent why that is from looking at this first set of numbers. Because the costs have gone up 12% as compared to about 10% for the district as a whole, but our number of transported students is only up 7.5%. The number of buses is up just under 8%, and the cost per student is only up around 4.5%, as well as the annual cost per route bus. The efficiency of the system, however, has actually increased over the year. The number of buses per 100 students, this is a measure of both asset utilization and capacity utilization. It just simply takes the number of transported students. Figure out how many buses we need to transport each 100 student block. It's a wonderful measure for us to understand the overall efficiency of the system, because the dual goals of any system as far as efficiency is concerned is to fill as many seats as possible and to reuse that bus as many times as possible. We combine those two into this measure. You see that a lower number in this case is better, and you can see that it has gotten better, marginally so, but better over the intervening years. The other measure that has gotten that has improved significantly is seat capacity utilization, which system-wide in 2006 was calculated to be 59%, and in 2013, we're using the current route data, it's up to 64%.
In these numbers, are you also including our special needs student transportation?
We are. We are. These are rolled up numbers from the system as a whole. If you hold that thought, I'm going exactly down that road. Because at first glance, these numbers didn't make sense to us. Why are we seeing greater efficiency? We're seeing numbers of students at 78%, cost of 12%. Well, if we go on to the next page, we break out those numbers between two major categories of service. Regular education, which includes the magnet numbers, and special needs, which includes all specialized transportation at ESC. Here is where the numbers begin to make sense to us. Okay? If you look at the total cost, it breaks out where special needs transportation is roughly 45% of your total cost, but a much smaller proportion of your total students transported. It's inherently a more expensive form of transportation. We know that. We're never surprised to see it. We see multiples of 10x where almost everywhere we go in terms of the cost per student transported value. But what's very interesting here, when you look at the number of transported students by category between 2006 and 2013, regular education students transported has actually gone down marginally. The number that fall into that special education or specialized transportation category has skyrocketed. So you could see in 2006, you could even see that 10x multiple actually on the cost per student. That multiple has gone down a lot, but it's still much more expensive to transport on a per student basis than special needs and specialized transportation students than it is the regular students. So the picture that begins to emerge is that we are continuing to squeeze as much efficiency out of the system as we can, holding overall costs in line with the district as a whole, but we are adding service in that specialized component at a much greater rate than we are in the regular. That's where your additional costs are coming from. That's where the real pressure on the system is being exerted.
So to that point, and this is going to sound extremely cool, but on this particular set of numbers, the level of service that we're providing, is it the minimal amount of services that we're providing, or are we doing more than the minimum?
Yeah. So this level of analysis, when we're looking at just those numbers, doesn't tell us a lot about that.
That would be
What I can
interesting to
tell
know.
you is that we are putting more kids on the bus. We're using that bus more intensively over the course of the day, so you can infer what that means. We did not look at student ride time, which you can value just because we didn't have it.
Tom, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
To that question, when you make comparisons sometimes, it helps us to look how other districts are about our size. Is this unusual, or is it usual? Are we in line with the districts across the country having to face the same kinds of issues of trying to meet the needs of our special ed students in terms of transport?
I would say that the trends that we're seeing here are typical of the trends that we're seeing nationwide. I can't speak to whether the magnitude of the change in the special needs requirement is comparable to what we've seen, but the basic trends that we are seeing is more specialized transportation, right? More schools of choice, more identification of special needs, more demands placed on the transportation network as a result. And there are implications to that, which is probably where we can segue to. So, if there's more questions on that, I think there's a couple of charts here that really help to illustrate what's been going on in the system as a whole. This fleet deployment chart shows you the deployment of special needs buses, specialized transportation buses in the morning. It's an overlay of the blue bars being what was going on in 2006 and the orange bars being what's happening today. It shows you the number of buses that are actively in use carrying students at each of the time intervals across the horizontal axis. Okay? It's extraordinarily instructive because it shows two things primarily. It shows that the basic structure, the architecture of the system hasn't changed much, if at all, since 2006. We haven't made big changes to bell times. We haven't made big changes to length of instructional day, things of that nature. But you see the same basic pattern of deployment. But what you see is that increased intensity rate. You see more buses being used for longer periods over the course of the day. So we're asking for more from the same bus than we were asking back in 2006. On the efficiency side, that's a good thing. To the question about effectiveness, that's an open question. The same presentation for the regular buses is also very instructive because you see an increase, but you don't see the same level of increased intensity at all that we saw on the special education, especially side of the house. So the regular education system, like we said, is transporting roughly the same number of students and doing it roughly the same way. Okay? But we also added efficiency on that side of the system in order to help facilitate holding the line on the special needs side. Any questions on this?
I was just noticing, having a sidebar, that the time frame, see a huge dip from 2006 to 2014, from 7 to about 7:20 in the morning. And I'm wondering if that's the high school bell time.
instructor about here. It gives us a sense of what's going on with the system as a whole. It gives us an opportunity to understand where we need to drill down to understand it. But I think is hopefully instructive for you to understand how the system is going to squeeze.
Now, with this type of bar graphic, could we play with the bell time and see what it would look like?
Yes.
If we
This modeling, we use it consistently and to great effect exactly for that. Because what it allows you to do is it allows you to sort of going off on a tangent, but it allows you to take
Welcome to my world.
certain assumptions. You can build in certain assumptions, right? Like we're going to keep the bus run the same. What happens if we move from this time slot to this time slot? How many buses does do we need to accommodate that?
That would be, from my perspective, that would be a really good tool for us to be able to help make that decision about maybe, because there's oftentimes conversation about changing the bell times, particularly for high school students, because teenagers do better in the late morning and things of that nature. So it would be really good to see what the scenarios would look like.
Maybe as we move to the next phase of whether we continue to use a consultant for whatever phases we want. Certainly staff is going to look at. Certainly we are all going to have suggestions to the staff about, where we think things would fix the system. Magic wands. So today, but we're talking about bus replacement, so.
And that's what we need to get on to.
Okay.
But it's a good stopping point to emphasize one thing.
Okay.
What you get in transportation is an output. It's an outcome of a lot of inputs and variables that go into it. Right? How you set bell times, how much you decide to spend on investment buses, what the parameters are for eligibility for service, what schools kids get transported to. There's 100 different variables that act on the equation. Okay? What we're looking at today is the outcome that you're either enjoying or not enjoying as a result of a lot of decisions that you've made and a lot of variables that are acting on your equation as it stands today. So by changing any of those variables would change the outcome that you see.
Okay, cool, thanks.
So on to the heart of the matter. So that's the system sort of at large. As I emphasized at the beginning, it's the system as designed, right? Well, we know that what's going on operationally day to day does not reflect this in its entirety. There's some things going on that we need to talk about as to why that is.
Okay.
Let's begin with the subject of the fleet, and the age of the fleet. This summary chart shows you, again, the blue bars being 2006, and in this case the red bars being current day, the distribution of the age of the fleet in year-long segments. Okay? I want to emphasize that the fleet is safe, the fleet is operating, but the big but is that your fleet is old and has been getting progressively older since 2006. This was not highlighted as a major issue in 2006, because prior to that year, we have been investing on a pretty regular basis in fleet replacement. Since 2006, you have bought a grand total of 32 buses. This is the outcome. This is the result of what you see. What you see is a very aged fleet. The average age of the fleet of 12 years. This is a problem, and it's having a dramatic impact on our assessment on the quality of the services that we deliver. The other area, and we'll talk more about that when we get into fleet replacement. I'm having trouble because I'm controlling that, but I'm not controlling that. So our findings and our overall assessment of the operation as it applies to the buses themselves is that there's a high rate of mechanical breakdown in-service on-road breakdowns on a daily basis. That's 2.2% of all the buses breaking down on the road. Here's the perspective I'd like to give you. As you drive to work every morning, would you accept that your car broke down 1 out of every 50 days? That's the equivalent of what's going on the fleet right now. There's a lot of causes for that. Age of the fleet being the primary one, but some others that we'll talk about as well. Yes, ma'am.
Can I tease out one piece about breaking down versus safety? Because people say, well, what if the brakes don't work? I don't want a bus slamming into. Is that the kind of breakdown we're having, or are these stupid little things that really?
These are mechanical failures that cause the bus to stop operating, right? Which, and if you follow that line of that thread, you can see what starts happening operationally, right? We've designed a bus run to leave the yard at 7, pick up their students and reach school at 7:45. Now the bus breaks down halfway through that run. It's on the side of the road. You have to find a spare bus and a spare driver. Meet the bus that broke down, transfer those kids, finish the bus run, and get to school. And probably not at 7:45, but sometime later than that. That spare bus that we had to pull aside to do that run was probably busy doing its own run, so there's a domino effect here. So I'm not talking about safety-related issues at all. I'm talking about mechanical issues because the buses are not able to be serviced the way they need to be serviced for a lot of reasons, and because the buses are old. And old buses break down the road just like old cars.
To analysis of what you do of that actual service and what's causing the breakdowns. Because I don't think that's
Again, it's going to be at a high level, but we're getting people that question about that as well.
Because that's something that we've been hearing, and I'm finding a hard time encapsulating that the buses are safe, but they're breaking down frequently, and it's a mechanical issue. If my car's breaking down frequently, that's a safety issue.
You have to offload those students and get them to another
Not
bus.
to mention the number of special
Fires.
needs students that we're transporting if we're breaking down frequently.
And then in my comments, the safety of the bus, and that's all I'm talking about here. I agree with your assessment that if the bus is on the side of the road and the off-road students put on the bus, that's a problem.
What about buses catching on fire though? We've had 2 of those this year.
Well, the buses haven't caught on fire, we've been fired as pieces.
Okay.
More
More specific, children have to be offloaded off the buses because of fires.